Hey everybody, Douglas Blair Roberts here, the Super Beta 400, and of course, Brown Skin Human coming back at you with another video type intro. This is my second Doug's rant on current and past social issues rant. This is a brand new rant. Past and current issues like the George Floyd riots, Baltimore riots, various people I can't stand, or my newest series, a praise and salute, and small rants for things I don't like about them, for conservatives, and people I of course do respect and admire and look up to. The reason I'm redoing this video is because for some odd reason, the previous daytime intro I did earlier this year, that video, for some odd reason, whenever I upload it to YouTube, I always get a copyright claim for the music I used, even though the music I've used in the past had of course no copyright claim. So had of course no copyright claim, and the copyright claims aren't a big deal, but they will be in the future if I ever plan to monetize this video when my channel becomes available for monetization. I'm gonna still use the same song, but I'm gonna use a different video. The last song and video I used was an upload from the band itself. This is just a re-upload. This is just a random re-upload of the quote unquote song, and I'm gonna see. Does this one get a copy? Does this one get a copyright too? This one gets a copyright too. If this one gets a copyright, I'll just dispute it when the time comes. I'll just dispute it with the creators, with the quote unquote creators, or maybe even just have YouTube swap out the song. So that's what I'm gonna be doing from now on. That's what I'm doing, a brand new intro, a video I've already done, and there will be also short remakes of those same better remakes of those same videos. I may even do another one later for another daytime version, because I like the lighting during the day than I do at night. And for some odd reason, my ceiling fan, the light in my ceiling fan went out, and it's hard to reach and focus and screw the light on with the huge dome in the way. So with that being said, let's get started right now. Let's show these people what I'm made of. Let me show you who I am, what I'm here for. everyone. It's time for a remake of a video I actually did in 2018 on my Facebook account. I don't think I ever uploaded this video to YouTube. But this is my rant on high school, or should I say hell school. My remade rant on high school and hell school. High school for me has been over for almost now 13 plus years, about to be 14. I like to say 10 plus, but it's actually 14 plus years now. It's been over since early 2008, high school. However, a lot of the stuff I'm still feeling PTSD from a lot of the stuff that took place during my high school years several years later, and still angry about several things that took place in high school several years later. Yeah, high school, thanks to my dad's big man on campus storylines, and me watching way too much Disney Channel, sitcoms, and pro wrestling, which I have a habit of confusing stuff like that with real life. Some of it was real, some of it was over the top and fake. But the part that was real, that I was afraid of the most, was the big man on campus storylines. My dad, before I got to high school, he would often talk about stories how he was the big man, and would bother and mess with the other kids. And in my opinion, that's a bully. But because the other kids, because they're supposedly his friends, and it's supposedly my dad supposedly teasing him, or in this case, they don't do. Those people aren't man enough to do anything about it. So they just man up and deal with it and just take it, because my dad is older. He's older, bigger, stronger. He can get away with it, and nobody has the balls to do anything about it. So they just man up. And just take it. Well, what you're describing a bully, but it's not bullying, because the other person doesn't have the balls to do anything about it. So he or she just sits there and takes it, and well, no one was gonna do me like that. So I went to school with a prison yard Mike Tyson mentality, who run after, fight and chase, fight the first person who even looks at you wrong, who even looks at me wrong, especially if they're female, who those are much weaker. The first person who looks at you wrong, do something. And this is the attitude I went with. Once again, I stayed with a small circle of friends, mostly friends of mine from high school, and from junior high school, and a few new ones. But I stayed with a small circle of friends. I didn't want a whole lot of friends. I didn't want to be associated with the losers, the flunkies. During my 10th grade year, my dad always hated that. The ghetto hood rat trash, the class clowns, those ones who were never going to amount to anything. My dad always hated the fact that I resented them and refused to hang out with them. In junior high school, I actually tried fighting. In early days of junior high, I tried fighting people like that, but I always lost. I couldn't beat them. So I just stayed in my lane and did my own thing. My dad always hated that, and that's the biggest reason. That's one of the biggest reasons I have issues with my parents now. A kid who does what I do, who first off, when it comes to bullies, stands up to his bullies, stands up, has no problems retaliating or beating down his bullies. Oh, oh, because I don't follow the status quo. I don't follow the status quo. All of a sudden, my dad and my mom had a problem with that. Number two, because I chose to associate myself with what I saw as positive people over people they associated with and are as I would learn during then and much later in life, in life, because I refused to associate with those people. My parents always got on me. They always took their side as if they were their kids, forcing me now to just take other people's bullying and disses, because if I retaliate, I got to deal with the high school's no tolerance policy. High school don't care who hit who said what, and what you call it. You're both headed for the principal's office, and you're both headed for in school or out of school suspension, with in school being worse, which I've had that on 2 occasions. I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, they would always defend and protect my enemies as if they were their children. I deem that unforgivable. My parents have done a lot for me recently, but I have honor, I have pride, and I deem that unforgivable. And because of that, I refuse to associate or hang out with my parents for something like that. Parents and the rest of my family for something like that. I have a work-only mentality. Unless it's business, sports, shopping, or anything else I want to do or have to do, or a fight, or any form of fight, I don't want to deal with or be around any more than I have to. What else about oh yeah, what else? So yeah, there was that, and then this doesn't bother me much anymore. I actually embrace this more now. I actually learned to, and even then I embraced it a little. But one thing that bothered me back in high school, it didn't bother me back in junior high. In junior high, I actually wanted this. Yeah. When I was in junior high, when I was in elementary school, junior high, and high school, for most of my school career, I was in special education technology program. Now, in junior high, I didn't mind because I didn't want to be near the other regular class students, even though I ended up testing out of special ed and ended up in class with them anyway. So it's like you never get away from them. While your core classes were special ed, even then my other classes, gym, your elective classes, gym, home ec, and those classes, of course, were with the regular students. So you ended up in confrontation with them anyway. But the next 2 years, 7th and 8th grade, after showing that with the assistance of a teacher I can handle it in regular classes, I kind of liked it better that way. In high school, for most of my high school career, it was like that. It was half for the easy classes, literature, and at that time, the various social studies for the first for the first 4 years. I mean, when it came to literature, when it came to literature and ninth grade social studies, two of the easiest classes ever, they would give me the they would give me a small class with a bunch of kids who I either don't get along with or just would never talk with, never talk with. I later conquered this problem by talking to my other friends during in the hallway, at lunch, in homeroom, or doing other various free time during school or electives, which I did share because most of my friends were advanced, so they had super advanced were different diploma choices, so they were in super advanced classes than I was, than I quote unquote was. Yeah. So yeah, for the easiest classes at that time in ninth grade social studies and in ninth grade literature and in ninth, 10th, and 11th grade for literature, they would give me the hardest. They would give me for literature, they would which were easy at the time, they would give me a lame small class. But for the hardest subjects, ones that actually needed to be small, classes that needed to be small, I am terrible at science and math. I am terrible at science and math. Geometry, algebraic expressions with multiple variables and problems, that take forever to solve with a calculator are my absolute worst. I had to stop college because of how hard those was. And then you had science, biology and environmental science are the easiest, but physical and even worse chemistry, which adds a lot of math into it, are the absolute worst forms are the worst forms are my worst forms of science, man. They're the hardest, man. They would give me the hardest, loudest, most ignorant group of people, and because of that, didn't get what I needed in high school. I just did enough to get by, did enough just to graduate, graduate and get out of school. It would give me the hardest class ever. It would give me the hardest class ever. The high school educational system is atrocious, man. Next, speaking of terrible education, diploma choices, they would put every class on a diploma. They would put every class on a diploma and call it a day. And call it a day. Even and then classes, other bullshit. High school. Now this was a preparation for life, but I felt high school should have been different. Should have been different. This was a preparation for life. One thing we learn in life a lot, even though I believe in it, life multiple times isn't fair. Life isn't fair. As I kept learning the hard way as I got older, life just isn't fair. But in high school, in my opinion, I've always tried to take driver's education in high school. I would always sign for driver's education, and they would always refuse. They offered a class that not everyone could take. They offered a class that not everyone could take, and instead they would give me classes I didn't ask for, classes that had nothing to do with my diploma choice. I had a technology diploma choice. That was my diploma choice. They would give me foreign language like a French or something, which I also struggled with. Nothing to do with my diploma choice. Nothing to do with my diploma choice. Number three, my mom did this my entire career since second grade, always playing a race card with teachers. When it came to teachers, the Caucasian teachers were actually okay. okay, and probably more so than any other teacher, prepared me for life, more so than any other teacher. The Afro-American teachers, especially the females, a couple were good, but they were the absolute worst. They were, they were arrogant, they were loud, they were obnoxious, they were tyrannical, they were tyrannical, they were tyrannical, and just everything you hate about people, especially Afro-Americans. But you can't say, you can't say, well, what other races can't say in order to avoid being labeled as a racist their entire life, or having their career ruined, any form of their career ruined. The most annoying group of people ever. This is why people like Sotomayor and myself exist. Yeah, the most arrogant, tyrannical people. I hate them now, especially now that I understand history. Teaching bogus history. The whites did this too, but they were at a Afro-American dominated school and community, so they had no choice but to teach. They had no choice but to teach Afro-American, American history, Afro-American history from an Afro-American's point of view, from their biased point of view, inspiring this lane, what you see now, brown versus white crime. I mean, not crime, but brown versus white racism. When if you go back in slavery, and I just remember this while watching the movie, while while watching movie The Prince of Egypt. Brown people so enslaved and sold their own people all over the world, and they got the audacity to sit up there and several years later do this crappy brown versus white war. When you talk about not being free here in America, you weren't even free internationally in your own country. So why would you be free here in America, in a country you're not originally from? But years and years, brown people were no different, sometimes even worse, in my opinion, even more tyrannical than white and other races. But we got to hear for years and years how great Afro-Americans were, the little engine that could, and how evil whites and other races were. I had every single teacher, and some of them, especially the ones who are still young and still alive, would love to break my foot off in their ass right now. The white teachers, they were tough, but they were fair. They were fair. They were more qualified for their job. In my opinion, if you're a teacher, if the majority of your class is failing or barely passing, in my opinion, you are not a good teacher, in my opinion. It shouldn't be too easy, but it shouldn't be too hard too, where it shouldn't be too easy too. I've had teachers like this too. It shouldn't be too easy, but it shouldn't be too damn hard either, where a person just can't, where a normal person just can't function or pass. No, it's just you're a bad teacher. You're a bad teacher, and the educational system sucks. So and whenever I would have issues with the Afro-American teachers, the parents always will take their side. Then later in other conversations with other people, they'll come here with some BS revisionist history of how they helped when they didn't. They took the side of what you call, because adults, no matter what, always stick together. Just like women, no matter how wrong or what, you always stick together. That's why I label you and lump each of you in every category, in the same category. So what else? Oh, so yeah, and my mom never got into. My mom always got into white people's face, and even sometimes didn't even get in their face either. Didn't even do anything about them either, but was always quick to get in their face, but wasn't another Afro American. Actually, my mom actually sided with and agreed with. They will later come here with some revisionist history that she tries, that she had my back, and now wants to have my back and stuff when you weren't here back in high school. And I take offense to that. I appreciate all the good stuff they do now, but that doesn't make up for all the bad stuff you knowingly did. I hate parents, and I wish kids start punishing their parents more, rebelling and punishing their parents more for this, making them answer for this. I'm sick of parents and adults in general getting away with things just because they're adults. They know damn well they wouldn't get away with when they were kids, but then because they're adults, they become more arrogant, more violent, more tyrannical, and that's even worse in the Afro-American community. I've seen it in all communities, but I see it the worst in the Afro-American community. They are the most arrogant, the most violent, the most tyrannical and power-tripping people I've ever seen, man. Yeah, then, so, yeah, yeah, which brings me to the next one. I had in school suspension. Now, I was wrong for acting up in special education, and also I participated in wrestling. In high school, and now I'm embarrassed about this. I became something of a jock, I'm kind of always falling behind, a jock, a dumb jock too, kind of falling behind, focusing more on sports than my classes, and my grades slipped a little, and later, worse, started getting angry over what I see now as fake wrestling matches. A rant on wrestling is next, on high school and WWE sports entertainment style of wrestling. A rant on those sports later, or is coming next. But this is high, this is high school. When it came to quote unquote wrestling, I remember when it came to yes, what you call it, in ninth grade, after messing up and losing at a big time championship match, the regionals match, where all I had to do was win one match, and I was guaranteed a championship and a spot at the state championship. A spot, pretty much a one-way ticket to the state championship. Now, nowadays, I blame myself for this loss now. I blame myself for this loss, and admit now that if I had wrestled with a better attitude, I would have been at the state. But I hated my coach and his BS rules and power tripping personality, and just everything he stood for. And I quit the team, numerous times because of him. And I'm mad that I kept coming back, and then what's his name? I'm getting mad now. Well, anyway, I lost at the match, and I was angry for a whole year, up until the next year that I messed up in the other sports. I couldn't do anything because I was so mad that I bummed out. I am mad that I took a lame sport like high school wrestling seriously, and I was always angry, and always tempted due to my coach's terrible leadership. My wrestling coach is probably the worst teacher I've ever had. My head wrestling coach, I've had multiple, but the other ones were okay, but the head one, I had problems with them. My summer one was the best one. My summer coach was the best one. The assistant coaches, they were okay, but I butted heads with them too, and the head one was the absolute worst, and I'm disappointed I ever followed someone like him. Him and the rest are they're my next video, the wrestling rant. But anyway, because his coaching, putting pressure on me, putting pressure. I later had to learn. I later had to be like a bad guy on televised wrestling and only care about myself, a bad guy, the anti-hero, and kind of only care about myself. Kind of only care about myself and go out there and show off and go out there and show off and do what I want, wrestle how I want. Yeah, wrestle how I want. It took me. I'm mad. It took me two years to learn that. Yeah, but yeah, I was mad. I bumped so much that I acted up in school on 2 occasions and got put in school suspension, in school quote unquote suspension. Once again, wanted parents on my side. They weren't on my side. They weren't on my side, and now they were on my side, and I have to take offense to that. Then it come issues with my wrestling coach. Issues with my wrestling coach. This is one of the biggest things I hate my dad for. My wrestling coach disrespected me by blaming me for the team's failures, demoting me from varsity to junior varsity, and also losing multiple matches while still trying to find time to mock and blame me for the team's failures while losing multiple matches without me. This guy gonna have the audacity to disrespect me. I decided right there to finally, I got into a fist fight. I planned and instigated a fist fight with the leader of the team, and then my coach broke up the fight. I gave my coach the middle finger. I told him what I think of him, and finally quit the team in anger. And I was angry. I was so angry that I actually, after a 2-year grade decrease, my grades increased because I spent more time studying. And other stuff, and I refused to go to practice. But I only came back as much as I hate the team, is most of my head coach and a couple of members, most of my wrestling buddies, who most of my success is because of them and dumb luck. I decided to come back one last time after school. Well, we had 2 high schools at the school. One last time at the school to wrestle. I ended up winning my match for the school, for my fans and my friends. My dad gonna have the audacity, gonna have the unmitigated gall to sit up there, rain on my parade, and force me to share my spotlight and forgive my wrestling coach who did every bad thing, and I spent the rest of the season once again doing everything I stopped doing. Once again, wrestling how he wanted me to wrestle, being on his team, following his orders, and being on a team I didn't want to be on. I badly want to beat the living daylights out of my dad for this, and if I don't succeed at any of my goals in life, yeah. So if I don't succeed in any of my goals in my life, or if my dad, which he does this too, if my dad or anyone in my family ever sabotages me between now and my goals, or if I don't succeed at life, I want the biggest thing, a thing I've always wanted, a fist fight him, where I will beat him and the rest of his family and the rest of my family to an inch of their lives. So if you ever see me on here, you ever see me on the news, this is what I'm talking about. This is what happened. You ever see me on the news or see long periods of inactivity? This is why, and this is why I decided to adopt this new arrogant, violent, racist, fascist, sexist, controversial YouTube personality, YouTube radio personality, persona style of videos to go with my reviews and rants, of movies, comics, cartoons, anime, video games, etc. Anime sports, combat sports, and boxing, etc. So and pretty much just entertainment, etc. So yeah. What else? Yeah. So yeah. The final thing I want to rant on. is this. I regret this every day of my life, man. Graduation, man. Graduation. Graduation. I had one of the worst and most uneventful graduations of all time. During my high school career, I decided, especially around junior year, I decided to clean up my act. I decided to clean up my act. I decided to clean up my act and work harder to graduate because I figured that at the end, we would, me and my classmates, we would all suffer during school, but at the end, we would all graduate. We would all graduate. My graduation, despite multiple practices and rehearsals, was a bust, was messed up, was screwed up. Two, two, two. Even though, despite having decent grades, I almost didn't graduate. Because one, I didn't fill out a form, and two, I didn't pay dues. I didn't pay dues. I didn't pay school dues, even though I didn't want to. Never participated in anything other than sports. Never participated in any field trips or anything. Like I said, I hated that place. Hated that place. And yeah, so that stains the accomplishment of the biggest one. I had hoped most of the people I was friends with, we would still be friends with several years later. Now, several of those people I either just don't talk to anymore due to political and clashing views, or just don't talk to anymore. Then there are people now who I'm beefing with, I can't stand, who later in life become even more arrogant when they get jobs and stuff, become even more arrogant. You've seen people have the audacity, and I know every race does this, but it's worse with Afro Americans because they talk about realness and being strong amongst your people. Yet they're the first types who will disassociate themselves and throw another on the bus, and that's why I can't stand pro-blacks, or mock or disassociate themselves from someone. I almost used to, I don't do this no more because no one deserves it. I almost used to wish they would get fired or removed from their own job. I don't wish that on anyone now. No one deserves that. Poverty and loss is a bitch. No one deserves that. That's the one evil I will never wish on anyone. No one deserves to have everything they work for and just to lose it all. No one deserves that. That is the worst pain in the world, man. That is the worst pain in the world, man. That is the worst pain. That is the worst pain in the world. So, but I used to wish them just to bring them back to my level, bring them back to my level. But that's the biggest reason I can't stand pro blacks, man, pro blacks. Then what else? Then so I'm either beefing with, or a couple I went to are now deceased, and life is just boring and bogus without them. The ones who are deceased. So that's why I wish I would have just paid the money and just skipped the ceremony and stuff. I'm embarrassed. Yeah. So yeah, high school, hell school is the worst. Hell school, the people, a lot of the teachers and administrators, the bogus no tolerance policy and rules, which forced me to take bullying. One guy even came to me and asked me, "Doug, why you let them get on you, man? Why you let them bother you so much?" I was so afraid of in-school suspension. Yes, I got in-school suspension on 2 occasions for going off on a teacher. In-school suspension, that I just took it. I just took it. And didn't retaliate much. Didn't retaliate much. Let people constantly get on me. And I'm mad at my parents because they also not only intolerance, but my parents forced me to tolerate and accept people like that when I didn't want to, and it took a braver, a stronger Afro-American and Sotomayor to remind me that I was right and they were wrong, and now I'm bitter because I was right but got brainwashed and got brainwashed and forced to do things and live life the way they wanted to versus life the way I wanted to. And now I want vengeance for what those two what those two did. What those two did. So yeah. Yeah. So that's old school, high school, and it's so bad. I forgot about it. When I receive friend invitations on Facebook, I don't even be remembering these people because I've blocked most of high school out of my mind. Well, you don't want to hear I talk longer than I wanted to. It's supposed to be shorter. You don't want to hear the rest of the music. Turn the video off right now.
Like a million faces, I recognize them all. And one by one they all become number as before. In the face of reason, I can't take no more. One by one they all become black marks on the floor. Is it anything you say you're looking for? Let me show you who I am and what I have in store. In store. Hey, hey, yeah! Trying to reach inside of me, trying to drain my energy. Let me show you just what I'm made of. Real curiosity, trying to take no mind of me. Let me show you just what I'm made of now. You can take the lifelong drive. You can take